Hi there, welcome to the I Ching Cafe. My name is Belinda Dovston, and it is wonderful that you are here with me for our monthly I Ching forecast for March 2026. Last month in February, we had two dynamic energies. They're always dynamic, aren't they? We had Hexagram 29, the abysmal, the doubling of water pumping down that ravine, the intensification of flow and risk and challenge coming at us, transforming into Hexagram 60, limitation, putting in place the controls, the boundaries, the structures, the timing, the chapters to break things up into manageable chunks, to take control of our life by putting in place the good controls. So, how did that flow work out for you? The intensity of Hexagram 29 always brings with it that focus on letting go into the flow, but understanding risk, understanding intensity, understanding how to become like water in order to deal with water. And I'm sure you found that in particular in the first half of the month, there was this very strong intensity related to things coming at us, challenges coming at us, being thrown into the churning ravine, the churning water, and having to just let the water take us, not trying to control ourselves initially. Control came later with the second hexagram, finding ways of becoming at peace with the churn and going with it, allowing it to take us forward and to work with the energy of that water. The structure of the dam containing the water as a second part of the theme for last month, allowing us to put in place those controls and to start to take that water and start to structure it, creating those controls, creating those flows, the channels, and being in charge of who we give our energy to and when and how. If anything came up for you for February, please do share a comment. How did you handle the flow? Right. This month, let's get into March's energy. We are leaving behind that water, okay, the abundance of water. We're going in a slightly different direction. We're working with a different energy this month. And our first hexagram for March, our main flow of change that we are working through, that is coming to bring us development and helping us to grow in ourselves and in our contribution to others, is hexagram 49, revolution. The overthrow of the old, the embracing of the new, the natural order of the snake shedding its skin and beginning again with fresh skin. We had this hexagram last month. Perhaps that was a foreshadowing of the change that we are launching into in March. So I would say hold on to your hats because this energy is quite wild. Not the same as hexagram 29, the abysmal. This is about really embracing change, embracing and throwing out the old self and embracing the new. Now, before we get into this hexagram, it has to be said, given the time that I recorded this episode, that the attacks on Iran have just happened. Okay. I want it to be absolutely clear to everyone that I'm not going to go and talk about revolution in the context of world events, because there is so much complexity and so much nuance to what is happening, and I don't want anyone to think that I have a side, a view, or are using this platform to create any kind of agenda. What I will say is that I'm anti-war. I'm pro-diplomacy and pro-peace. So do that with whatever you want. This energy of revolution is with us in March, and it may have been part of the energy of what is happening in the Middle East. I'm not going to get into what that means or whether it's good or bad, because I just do not know. I don't have a crystal ball, and I can't tell you whether the action and the reaction or the non-action are good, bad, or otherwise. I just don't know. All I know is that I'm pro-peace, pro-diplomacy, pro-adulting, and let's move on. Okay, so revolution. We're going to focus on revolution in the context of our personal lives. This is the scope of our world where we have control, where we are sovereign. We can make choices around how we embrace change in our lives. With this hexagram in March, change is coming, revolution. And where we are not stepping into the change, into overthrowing the old in ourselves, it will be forced upon us. Okay. Now, when we think about the idea of revolution, I'm going to zip back into history for a moment and talk about Caesar. Yes, Hail Caesar, that one. And Caesar as a story, we won't get into whether this is historically accurate or not, but it's a story we understand. Caesar as an authoritarian dictator, okay, there was a plot against his life. There were certainly lots of warning signs that if he had just paid attention, he would know what was going on. Be that as it may, Caesar was assassinated. And what came next is a time of huge crisis and upheaval, right? Massive war for years following the event. We always have to think to ourselves, when we celebrate one release, okay, what do we get in exchange? All right. And perhaps I am dipping back into what I said I wouldn't do earlier. But certainly, when we have a change that's overthrown, when we release ourselves from something, we have to also be mindful of the chaos that fills that hole. Okay. So when we think about revolution in our lives, this month we are being called to overthrow the old in our lives and in our environments. And we have 3 changing lines we're going to work through. So this is not a little bit of change. This is like bam, bam, bam. Okay, we are going through huge incremental changes this month. It's very exciting. There's lots of possibilities. But we have to take the moral of the story of Caesar. At the end of the day, Caesar's heir became the head of the Roman Empire. And actually, he was a very good guy by comparative standards in terms of what he brought into the region. But in between, in the assassination of Caesar and the embracing of Augustus, we have this period of terrible war in between. And we have to understand that when we throw change into our lives, into the lives of other people, close to us or otherwise, we have to have a plan of when that change is overthrown, what do we come back in with to structure the change as quickly as possible. So as we work with revolution, we understand that on one hand, when things become too oppressive in our lives, where the change that we have called for, whether it's ourselves that are preventing the change, right, our limiting belief systems, or it's somebody else we feel in our environment is the handbrake on our growth. When the opportunity comes to overthrow that energy, we have to stabilize the transformation, right? We have to bring in the structure. We have to bring in the support so that we don't degenerate into chaos. Because in the midst of chaos, all kinds of weird and wonderful things step into that chaos, and we are out of control then of what those things are. In our personal lives, what that means is that when we make a big decision, all right, when we make a big change, we need to support that change with action behind that change that stabilizes your life, okay? That stabilizes and anchors the change. We don't just throw the change up without any plan or any anchor or structure behind that change. We shift and we restructure, okay? And I want you to bear that in mind in your own life whenever you're making big decisions this month. If those are in front of you, think about, I'm going to make this change, but what is the structure? What's the strategy that I'm going to underpin the change with so that I do not create absolute chaos in my life through this? Okay. Right. So change is like that snake shedding its skin. We spoke about that last month and we had this hexagram, right? The revolution is a dramatic surge of energy to overthrow the old in favor of the new. I would imagine that we are all going to be making some pretty dramatic decisions in March, and perhaps shake-ups happen to us. We can take those shake-ups as negative or positive. Usually the negative ones are the ones when we think back later, think that was actually the best thing that ever happened to me. And maybe that's ourselves justifying our life experience back to ourselves. But we find that sometimes if we are not willing to change, the universe, whatever you want to call it, comes and brings the change to get us unstuck, okay, to get rid of that old skin and allow us to move forward. Okay, so brace yourselves. This energy is exciting and dynamic and The possibilities are shifting dramatically this month are huge, but we have to remember the chaos after Caesar. We have to bring in the structure to underpin and support the transformation that we are creating in our lives. We can't just change, restructure, change, restructure. Support the change with good structure beneath you. Okay, 3 changing lines of this month in the 2nd, 3rd, and 5th position. They do give us a time period. Okay, so I like to give time periods. So the first changing line matures around about the 7th or so of March. The next one around about the 15th, 16th of March, and the third one around about the 22nd of March. So that just kind of gives you a little bit of a timeline to work with. I have found sometimes that all 3 changing lines are happening in parallel throughout the period. Sometimes they go one after the other. So when we give timelines, we're not saying that is when they switch on and off like light switches. What I'm saying is that gives you an idea of the evolution of the story. It may not be exactly like this for you, but it gives you a good idea if you want to work with timing of how the change clicks over during the period of March. All right, in the 2nd position, this was the changing line we had last month. Okay, here it is. When all normal routes to change are blocked and they haven't worked, we have to get radical. Okay, so this comes back. What were you being radical about last month when we had this episode? Go and think back what was happening in your week. Reflect on what were you going through in terms of change markers. But sometimes I feel like when we had the little hexagram in a weekly prior, then you have it come up in the monthly. It's almost like the seed is there, right? And then it kind of bubbles away and then, whoa, then it comes up, particularly if you have the same changing line. So changing line 2, the usual things don't work. Be willing to be radical. Be a hero. Step into it. Step forward. Take charge. Lovely. Masculine energy here with this changing line. Be the hero. Okay, so there's something here where we have the power to be radical, where the normal routes to getting what we need to get done have not worked the way we want them to. Okay, in the 3rd position, this changing line talks about getting timing right on change. Okay, so just come back to the changing lines. There might be all 3 lines on the same issue for you as they cycle through. You might find there's 3 different areas of change in your life that come up, or a combination thereof. But just think about it in a variety of different ways. Okay, so changing line 3 says getting the timing right on change is really important. If we are too hasty, it's a problem. If we are too hesitant, it's a problem. And we have to pay attention to the signs that when we hear this call for change 3 times, we know it's time to act. Now, this idea of 3 times might be 3 people or 3 different sources giving you information. Say, for example, there's something happening in your team or in your workplace, and you get the information from 3 different sources. Doesn't mean it's exactly like that, but this is the idea of how we can interpret it. When you get that 3rd one, you know, okay, now is time to act. So there's something around getting the timing right, paying attention to the signs, the data that's coming in, getting that timing right, and bam, getting the action going. So up until around about the 15th, this changing line helps us to really focus on understanding timing, not to be hasty and to push because we want change no matter what, and not to be fearful and hesitant of change, but to wait for the right time. 1, 2, 3rd data point, go. So there's something around this where we are really being asked to pay attention to the information flowing and reading the signs, reading the world around us, because our world has this amazing biofeedback mechanism. It's so interesting how our physical world mirrors back. You know, people talk about signs, and I think you can take that too far as well when you're looking for a sign. But there's this wonderful biofeedback mechanism that if we are just attentive to what's going on, all right, we can get the information we need. In the 5th position, this is a supreme, beautiful position of change. It talks about the stripes of a tiger. When you look at a tiger and you see the black and the orange or yellow, they are distinct, strong indicators. And what that means is that there is such a strong signal for change, of action, of where we need to move, of what needs to get done, that everyone else can see it. It's like the stripes of a tiger. It's so visible. As long as we are humble and modest leaders, and we are focused on doing good and being present in our world and supporting everyone to come along with us, there's this energy here of wonderful blessings from change. People see it, they resonate with it, they understand it. It's like the stripes and the tiger. It's clear to everyone what this is. And the support comes. Blessings come. So it's a beautiful changing line. So we look back at our changing lines. 7th of March, the first one. Changing line 2. Be radical if other ways have not worked. Be the hero. Round about the 15th, line 3. Keep watching the signs of information. When you get confirmation that it's absolutely the right time to act, act. Don't hesitate, but don't be hasty. And the third one, there's absolute clarity as we head towards the 22nd of March on a particular issue where you get support. It's clear, the blessings come. You have the power to be a humble leader and you go for it. The change brings blessings. Oh, lovely. Okay, so let's look at where do those 3 changing lines lead? How do they transform the energy of revolution through to the end? Now, because you had all these changing lines, what I sometimes experience is that the more changing lines you have, the less you see in terms of timing that outcome hexagram. That's just my experience, right? Use your own faculties to see it in your own life. When you have maybe only one changing line, you have this very clear delineation between the first half of the month and the second half of the month. There's always much cleaner break in between. But with the changing lines, they transform into lots of other hexagrams in between. So when we get to the second hexagram, it's like a little slither at the end as we round out the change towards the end of March. And this is hexagram 54, marrying Maiden. This hexagram is all about power. All right, it's not about marriage. In a way it is, but this hexagram is all about big cycles of change that are beyond our personal control, or seem to be. And that despite feeling disempowered in some aspect of our lives or in some part of our position, we are being moved into position at the right time. So if you think about the idea of marriage, this is not the princess getting pole position with the prince of a foreign kingdom. She is the 7th wife, okay, right? This is the story that you'll read in the textbook. She's the 7th wife, or whatever number of wives. She's a concubine, where she's down the track in pecking order. She's lost her power. She was a real princess when she was a princess, and now she's married into this lineage. She's all the way down. She's lost a whole lot of her power and feels like, well, I'm not doing what I should be doing. I'm here down this pecking order. I've lost something. And actually what happens is that she then brings the air of a wonderful, bounteous time in the story that brings her purpose to fulfillment. Not that women's only purpose is to bring babies into this world, note, but that idea of we feel disempowered, we have a position of power, and then we're disempowered and we feel like we've lost something or we've been stepped down to a lower level, but actually we are being put into place where we actually need to fulfill a role. And sometimes it's hard to see that when we've got used to our power and how we handle this energy. So how do we handle this energy in March? Wherever we feel like we don't have the power that we feel we should have to do what we want to do, we have to trust the process, right? If we are sincere and we're wanting to do good and we're wanting to make the world a better place and we're wanting to fulfill what we are here to do, the universe, by whatever name you want to give it, will get us into position to fulfill that. And what we have to do is just keep on showing up to the moment, bringing the moment what it needs, and trust the process. Very difficult to do. There's a sense here that we have to swallow our pride and give the moment what it needs. Be the best level 7 princess you can be. Okay. And that's the idea, is that wherever we find ourselves in a situation where we do feel that disempowerment, trust that the process is moving things in the right sequence, in the right time to get you where you need to go. And truth be told, if you looked back on similar situations in your life, you probably will realize that has been playing out all along. That whenever you felt like you were out of control or disempowered in a situation, what was actually being arranged, what seemed to be moving around, was a much better situation, even though we could not see it in the level of detail that we're involved in. We behave in the right way. We bring our best selves to the moment. We honor the moment, and we do whatever it takes, even if we were a princess and now we feel like a cleaner. It doesn't matter. We need to bring ourselves to the best situation we can bring ourselves to in this moment. Take it in, conduct ourselves well, and bide our time and trust the process. What an interesting set of flows of change we are working with in March. It feels very jammed and very intense, totally different intensity to last month's flow. Of course, with 3 changing lines, different hexagrams, different flows that we are developing, different aspects of our nature that we are refining in the forge. We are all going through wonderful development together, and the I Ching is a powerful tool to help us focus on what the next step might be. Thank you for being here with me. I look forward to hearing your feedback on how March went for you as we work through March's overviews. If this was meaningful to you, a thumbs up, a like would be great. And of course, if you're new to the channel or the podcast, hit the subscribe button, the bell, and the follow button. And I will see you very soon for our first weekly overview, our forecast for March as we get stuck into the month. Until then, take care.